Jack Foster couldn't believe what he was seeing. The signal patterns on his monitor made no sense. After 3 years stationed at Europa Research Base, he thought he had seen everything the outer solar system could throw at him. "Hey, Olivia, you need to look at this," he called over his shoulder, not taking his eyes off the screen. Dr. Olivia Wright pushed away from her desk and rolled her chair across the lab. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she hadn't slept in nearly 20 hours. The base was understaffed as usual, and as the only xenolinguist assigned to this frozen moon, her workload was crushing. "What am I looking at?" she asked, squinting at the display. "That's just it. I don't know." Jack pointed to the regular pulses that cut through the normal background noise. "It started about 40 minutes ago. At first, I thought it was equipment failure, but I checked everything twice." Olivia leaned closer. "This isn't random. There's a pattern here." She tapped a few keys, changing the display to show the signal in a different format. "It's coming from beyond Pluto, near the heliopause." Jack nodded. "That's what I thought too. But there's nothing out there. No probes, no known objects that could generate something this strong." The signal suddenly intensified, causing both of them to jump back. The computer automatically adjusted the volume, and now they could hear it, a haunting, rhythmic series of tones that made the hair on Jack's arms stand up. "Record everything," Olivia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need to get my translation algorithms running on this." Within an hour, the entire base knew about the signal. Director Paul Harris called an emergency meeting in the main conference room, where 20 anxious faces stared at the projected waveforms. "So you're telling me," Harris said slowly, "that we're receiving a communication from an unknown source at the edge of our solar system?" "Yes, sir," Jack replied. "And Dr. Wright has confirmed it contains structured information." All eyes turned to Olivia, who stood up nervously. "The pattern repeats with variations that suggest language. My preliminary analysis indicates it's not random noise or a natural phenomenon. Something, or someone, is trying to communicate." The room erupted in murmurs until Harris raised his hand for silence. "What does Earth Command say?" asked Security Chief Lisa Donovan, her face grim. "They want us to keep this quiet until we know more," Harris replied. "The last thing they want is public panic." "Panic?" Jack couldn't help interrupting. "Why would people panic over a signal?" Olivia pulled up a new screen showing her initial translation attempt. "Because it appears to be a warning." The room fell silent as they read the few translated phrases. "Danger. Awaking now. Fili if piosa abil. Ition su emis." "We've only decoded about 5%, Olivia explained. "But the message repeats these concepts frequently. Whatever sent this is trying to warn us about something." Later that night, Jack found Olivia still working in the lab, surrounded by coffee cups and energy bar wrappers. "You should get some sleep," he said, setting down a fresh cup beside her. She didn't look up. "Can't. I'm making progress. Look at this." On her screen was a crude image that had been extracted from the signal, a spiral shape with a dark center, like a galaxy with something terrible at its heart. "What is it?" Jack asked. "I don't know yet, but the signal includes coordinates and technical specifications for something. Technology we've never seen before." Olivia finally looked up at him, her eyes red but intense. "Jack, I think someone out there is trying to help us prepare for something terrible." "Who would do that? And why us?" "That's what we need to find out." She turned back to her work. "Whatever it is, I don't think we have much time." Outside the base, Europa's icy surface reflected Jupiter's glow, while billions of miles away, something ancient stirred in the darkness between the stars. 1 week later, the Europa research base barely resembled the quiet scientific outpost it had been. Military personnel now outnumbered the researchers, and the once peaceful corridors buzzed with urgent activity. Dr. Olivia Wright hadn't left the translation lab for days, surviving on nutrient drinks and catnaps at her desk. "I've got it," she announced as Jack Foster entered with 2 steaming cups. The full translation: "It's worse than we thought." Jack handed her a cup and leaned over her shoulder. "Show me." The message filled the main screen, no longer a jumble of alien symbols but clear text. It began, "To any sentient species receiving this warning, we were once like you. We reached into the stars. We awakened something ancient. This is our final act before extinction." "My God," Jack whispered. "The message is from a civilization that called themselves the Valyrians," Olivia explained. "They were a spacefaring species about 300 years more advanced than us. They encountered what they call the Devourer, a cosmic entity that consumes entire star systems for energy." Jack scrolled through the translated text. "It says the Devourer has been dormant for thousands of years. Until now." Olivia pointed to a specific passage. "Our experimental quantum drive tests last year created ripples in space-time that are waking it up. The Valyrians detected these ripples and sent this warning." The lab door slid open as Commander Susan Miller entered. Her uniform bore the insignia of Earth Defense Force, a military branch created only 5 years ago to coordinate planetary security. "Dr. Wright, Lieutenant Foster," she nodded. "I need your report for the Emergency Council meeting in an hour." "The message contains technical specifications," Olivia said, pulling up diagrams. "Defensive technology beyond anything we've developed, and coordinates to what appears to be a Valyrian outpost hidden in our own solar system." Commander Miller's expression remained neutral, but her eyes widened slightly. "Location: the Kuiper Belt," Jack answered, "beyond Neptune." "Earth Command is assembling a mission," Miller said. "I've been assigned to lead it." "You'll need us," Olivia insisted. "I'm the only one who fully understands the translation algorithms," and Jack discovered the signal. Before Miller could respond, alarms blared throughout the base. Director Harris's voice came over the speakers. "All personnel to emergency stations. Repeat, all personnel to emergency stations." They rushed to the command center, where chaos reigned. Harris stood at the main console, his face pale. "The message has leaked," he said grimly. "Someone transmitted portions of the translation to Earth. Global news networks are broadcasting it now." On the main screen, they watched scenes of growing panic across Earth. Streets filled with frightened people. Markets emptied as hoarding began. Religious groups gathered in prayer while others protested outside government buildings. "How did this happen?" Miller demanded. "Unknown," Harris replied. "But the damage is done." Jack watched in horror as the feed showed riots breaking out in major cities. "This is exactly what Earth Command feared." "It gets worse," Harris continued. "The United Nations Security Council is divided on how to respond. Half want to implement the defensive measures from the message. The others think it's a hoax or an alien trick to deplete our resources." Olivia slammed her hand on the console. "They're wasting precious time. The Valyrian message includes a timeline. If they're right, we have less than 6 months before the Devourer reaches our solar system." Miller straightened her uniform. "Then we proceed as planned. Dr. Wright, Lieutenant Foster, you're both temporarily reassigned to my command. We leave for the Kuiper Belt outpost in 48 hours aboard the Artemis." "What about Earth?" Jack asked, watching the scenes of unrest. "Let the politicians handle Earth," Miller said firmly. "Our job is to find this outpost and bring back whatever technology the Valyrians left for us. It may be humanity's only chance." As they left to prepare for the mission, news feeds showed military units deploying in major cities. The world was changing before their eyes, united in fear of what lurked at the edge of their solar system. The Artemis cut through the blackness of space, its fusion engines glowing blue against the endless dark. After 3 weeks of travel, they had finally reached the coordinates from the Valyrian message. The crew gathered on the bridge, staring at the main view screen in silence. "That's it?" Jack asked, leaning forward. "That's the outpost." Before them floated what appeared to be an ordinary asteroid, roughly 10 kilometers across. Its surface was cratered and lifeless. indistinguishable from countless other rocks drifting in the Kuiper Belt. "Sensors detect artificial structures beneath the surface," said Alan Carter, the ship's chief engineer. His fingers danced across the control panel. "Some kind of energy signature too, very faint, but definitely not natural." Commander Miller nodded. "Take us in closer. Prepare a landing team." 2 hours later, Jack found himself inside a shuttle approaching the asteroid's surface. Beside him sat Olivia, her face hidden behind her helmet visor, and Chief Engineer Carter. Commander Miller led the team, her military training evident in her precise movements. "Remember," Miller said as they touched down, "we don't know what's waiting for us in there. Stay alert." They exited the shuttle in their bulky spacesuits, magnetic boots keeping them anchored to the asteroid's low-gravity surface. Carter approached what appeared to be a smooth section of rock and placed a device against it. "The energy signature is strongest here," he said. "There should be an entrance mechanism somewhere." Olivia moved forward, studying the surface. "These markings here, they match symbols from the Valyrian message." She pressed her gloved hand against a series of small indentations. The ground beneath them trembled. A seam appeared in the rock, widening until it revealed a dark tunnel leading downward. "Well done, Doctor," Miller said, shining her light into the opening. "Let's find out what the Valyrians left for us." The tunnel descended steeply into the asteroid's core. After walking for nearly 20 minutes, they emerged into a vast chamber that took their breath away. The walls glowed with soft blue light, illuminating structures of metal and crystal unlike anything human eyes had seen before. "It's a research facility," Carter whispered in awe, approaching a bank of what appeared to be control stations. "These look like data terminals." Olivia moved to the center of the chamber where a large cylindrical container stood. The transparent walls revealed a preserved body floating in clear fluid. A Valyrian. The alien was humanoid, but clearly not human, with elongated limbs and a head that housed 3 large eyes, now forever closed. "They wanted us to see them," she said softly, "to know who sent the warning." Jack approached another section of the chamber where spherical objects lined the walls. "What are these?" Carter scanned them with his equipment. "Some kind of technology storage units. The data inside, it's incredible. Designs for defense systems, energy weapons, shield technology, all far beyond our current capabilities." Miller examined a different terminal. "Look at this. They left a message specifically for whoever found this place." The team gathered around as Olivia worked to translate the text appearing on the screen. "It says we weren't chosen randomly," she read, her voice growing excited. "The Valyrians observed Earth for centuries. They say humans possess something unique, an adaptability and resilience they never developed. They believe we might succeed where they failed." "Why us?" Jack asked. "We're nowhere near as advanced as they were." Before anyone could answer, the chamber hummed to life around them. Lights brightened, and dormant systems activated one by one. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the room, showing a map of the galaxy with a pulsing red dot moving slowly toward their solar system. "It's responding to our presence," Carter said, checking his instruments. "Some kind of automated system." The hologram zoomed in to show their solar system. A second signal began broadcasting from the outpost, stronger than the first warning. "What's it doing?" Miller demanded. Olivia's face paled behind her visor as she read the new message appearing before them. "It's telling us we have less time than the Valyrians calculated. The devourer has accelerated, and it's not just coming for our son." "What does it want?" Jack asked. "Us," Olivia translated grimly. "It hunts sentient life specifically, and somehow it knows we're here." The United Nations headquarters in New York had never seen a gathering like this. Leaders from every nation sat together, former enemies side by side, united by a common threat. On the central screen, images from the Valyrian outpost played, showing technology beyond human understanding and the preserved alien bodies. "We have no choice but to work together," said President Laura Wilson, her normally confident voice subdued. The Planetary Defense Initiative must begin immediately. All military resources, all scientific minds, all industrial capacity, everything we have must be directed toward this threat. Nobody objected. The evidence brought back by the Artemis crew had silenced even the most skeptical leaders. In a smaller room adjacent to the main chamber, Dr. Natalie Rodriguez demonstrated her latest breakthrough to Jack, Olivia, and a group of scientists from around the world. The Valyrian communication technology is remarkable, she explained, gesturing to a complex array of equipment. I've adapted their principles to create this long-range transmitter. It can send focused signals to specific star systems up to 30 light-years away. Do we know if anyone's out there to receive the signals? Asked Jack. Natalie nodded excitedly. According to the Valyrian database, there are at least 17 potentially advanced civilizations within range. The Valyrians observed them too, but never made contact. Why not? A Chinese scientist asked. They were afraid of drawing the Devourer's attention, Olivia explained. But now that it's already awake and heading our way, that concern is irrelevant. Commander Miller entered the room, followed by a tall man in a crisp diplomatic uniform. This is John Martinez. She introduced him. The UN has appointed him as our first Sino-diplomatic envoy. Martinez shook hands with everyone. My job is to establish communication protocols with any civilizations that respond to Dr. Rodriguez's transmissions. We need allies if we're going to survive this. The Valyrian database mentioned defense networks throughout this sector of the galaxy, Jack said. Ancient systems built by civilizations even older than the Valyrians, if we can reactivate them. That's our secondary objective, Miller confirmed. But first, we need to transform Earth's defenses using the Valyrian technology. Over the next 2 months, Earth changed more rapidly than at any time in human history. Military bases converted to manufacturing facilities for new weapon systems. Orbital platforms were constructed around the planet, equipped with shield generators based on Valyrian designs. The world's most brilliant minds worked tirelessly to understand and adapt the alien technology. Then came the day everyone had been waiting for. Natalie burst into the command center, her eyes wide with excitement. We got responses. 3 different civilizations have answered our transmissions. The room erupted in cheers. The first contact team gathered around Natalie's console as she displayed the incoming messages. This one is from a species called the Tellurians, she explained. They received a Valyrian warning similar to ours about 50 years ago. They've been preparing ever since. What about the others? Asked Martinez. The Norva and the Keshet. Both are advanced spacefaring civilizations. The Norva specialize in energy weapons, while the Keshet have developed stealth technology that might hide entire planets from detection. Miller smiled for the first time in weeks. This changes everything. We're not alone in this fight. Days later, Earth's first official communication with alien allies was broadcast globally. Martinez stood before the cameras, flanked by military and scientific leaders. Today marks a historic moment, he began. The people of Earth have established formal diplomatic relations with 3 other intelligent species. Together, we formed the Galactic Defense Alliance, united against the common threat of the Devourer. Jack watched from the sidelines, feeling a mix of hope and dread. Do you think it will be enough? He asked Olivia quietly. She squeezed his hand. The Valyrians believed in us for a reason, and now we're doing what they couldn't, uniting with others instead of fighting alone. On screens throughout the command center, reports showed ancient defense systems activating across the sector. Dormant for millennia, they hummed to life one by one, forming a network of protection that spanned dozens of star systems. Earth was preparing for war, but for the first time, humans weren't facing the darkness alone. The first signs of the enemy arrived without warning. Research Station Omega, positioned at the edge of the solar system, went silent at 300 hours Earth Standard Time. The backup communication systems failed to activate. 12 hours later, Research Station Delta suffered the same fate. "They're here," Commander Miller said grimly, addressing the Joint Command of Earth's Defense Forces. "The Devourer's scout vessels have entered our system." Jack and Olivia exchanged worried glances across the briefing room. 6 months of frantic preparation suddenly seemed woefully inadequate. "What do we know about these scout ships?" asked General Frank Howard, Earth Defense Force's highest-ranking officer. Miller displayed the sensor readings from the last moments of Station Omega. "They appear to be biological in nature. Not ships containing living beings, but actual living vessels. They absorb energy in all forms: heat, radiation, electrical, anything that powers our technology." Lieutenant Kate Wilson, a young officer who had distinguished herself during training with the adapted Valyrian weapons, stood up. "I request permission to lead the first defensive engagement, sir." All eyes turned to her. At 32, Wilson was younger than most field commanders, but her understanding of the alien technology was unmatched. "Granted," Miller said after a moment. "Take the Aurora Squadron. Intercept these scouts before they reach Mars orbit." 3 hours later, Kate Wilson sat in the command chair of the EDF Defender, leading a fleet of 12 ships equipped with weapons reverse-engineered from Valyrian designs. The vessels moved silently through the darkness beyond Mars, sensors sweeping for any sign of the intruders. "Contact," reported her tactical officer. 3 objects approaching from Sector 7. They matched the profile of the scout vessels. "All ships, battle formation," Kate ordered. "Remember your training. These weapons operate differently than anything we've used before. Target their central mass and fire in coordinated bursts." The enemy appeared on their view screens, dark, elongated shapes that seemed to absorb the light around them. They pulsed with an eerie internal glow, moving with fluid grace that no mechanical ship could achieve. "They've spotted us," the tactical officer warned. "They're accelerating." Kate took a deep breath. "Fire sequence Alpha. All ships, engage." The human fleet unleashed streams of energy unlike any weapons Earth had previously wielded. Beams of concentrated particles designed to disrupt the biological structure of the enemy vessels struck their targets simultaneously. One of the scout ships convulsed, its outer membrane rupturing in a spectacular display of light. The second took severe damage but continued its approach. The third evaded most of the attack and accelerated toward the defender. "Evasive action," Kate shouted as her ship shuddered under the scouts' attack. Systems flickered as the enemy began draining their energy. "Secondary weapons online," her weapons officer announced. "Firing." The defender released a cloud of microscopic drones, another technology adapted from the Valyrian arsenal. They swarmed the attacking scout, penetrating its membrane and releasing a targeted pathogen designed to attack its unique biology. The effect was immediate. The scout vessel writhed in space, its attack ceasing as it fought the infection spreading through its systems. Within minutes, it had stopped moving entirely. "The second scout is retreating," reported the tactical officer. "It appears to be transmitting data back toward the outer system." Kate nodded grimly. "Let it go. We need to analyze what we've captured here." Back on Earth, the news of the first successful engagement spread rapidly. In the command center, Jack found Olivia analyzing the data transmitted from the defender. "Kate did it," he said, unable to hide his relief. "First contact and first victory." Olivia didn't share his optimism. "This was just a test. The Devourer sent these scouts to assess our defenses. Look at this." She pointed to a section of the data. The scout was transmitting our weapon specifications, our tactics, everything. "So they'll adapt," Jack acknowledged. "Yes, but that's not what worries me the most." Olivia pulled up another screen showing analysis of the captured scout vessel. The Devourer isn't simply consuming energy for survival. Its biology is designed specifically to counter technologies used by sentient species. It's as if. As if what? The sky over Neptune darkened as the main force of the Devourer arrived. The combined fleet of Earth and its alien allies watched in horror as thousands of the massive biological ships filled their sensors. Each one dwarfed the scouts they had faced before, some measuring kilometers across. They moved in perfect coordination, like cells in a single organism. "There are too many," whispered a young officer on the bridge of the EDF Defender. Commander Susan Miller silenced him with a look. "We hold the line here. If they get past Neptune, Earth will have no time to complete the evacuation." Humanity had prepared for this moment for months, but the reality was far worse than their projections. The Allied fleet consisted of 300 ships, the largest gathering of vessels in human history, plus another 150 from their alien allies. Against thousands of the enemy, they seemed hopelessly outnumbered. "All ships, form defensive positions," Miller ordered. "Keshet stealth vessels, move to flanking coordinates. Norva energy platforms, prepare primary weapons." On Earth, Jack and Olivia watched from the main command center as the battle began. The room was silent, hundreds of military and scientific personnel staring at the massive display. "The Tellurian reinforcements are still 6 hours out," Jack noted, checking the tactical readouts. Olivia nodded, her face pale. "Miller needs to hold until then." The first wave of the Devourer ships attacked. They didn't use conventional weapons, but instead projected fields that drained energy from everything they touched. Several human vessels went dark immediately, their systems failing as their power was stolen. But then something unexpected happened. The adapted Valyrian weapons on the human ships proved surprisingly effective. Where the Valyrians had focused on defensive technology, humanity had created new offensive capabilities that the Devourer hadn't encountered before. "They're adapting our tactics," noted one of the alien observers in the command center. The being, a Norva representative named Kelth, watched with 3 multifaceted eyes. "Your species fights differently than any we've seen." "How so?" asked Jack. "You sacrifice units strategically. You take risks. The Devourer expects logical, predictable responses. Your unpredictability confuses it." The battle raged for hours. The Allied fleet suffered heavy losses, but inflicted significant damage on the enemy. Commander Miller directed her forces with brilliant tactics that kept the Devourer off balance. Then, just as the human lines were about to break, ancient weapons platforms around Jupiter activated. Massive energy beams lanced out from the gas giant's moons, tearing through dozens of enemy vessels. "What is that?" General Howard demanded. "Those aren't our platforms." Olivia's eyes widened as she checked the data. "They're Valyrian. They must have seeded our system with defensive weapons millennia ago, programmed to activate when the Devourer returned." The unexpected reinforcements turned the tide temporarily. On the main view screen, Miller's face appeared, her uniform torn, and a cut bleeding on her forehead. "We've pushed them back beyond Neptune's orbit," she reported. "But we've lost 60% of our fleet. We can't hold much longer." "The Tellurians will reach you soon," Jack assured her. "It won't be enough," Miller replied grimly. "There are just too many. But we've learned something critical. The Devourer is avoiding direct attacks on humans specifically. It seems almost afraid of us." Dr. Alan Carter pushed his way to the front of the command center, holding a tablet with trembling hands. "I've finished analyzing the genetic samples from the Valyrian outpost," he announced. "You need to see this immediately." He transferred his data to the main screen, showing a complex DNA sequence. "This is human DNA with markers highlighted. And this," he swiped to another image, "is Valyrian genetic code with similar markers." "What are we looking at?" Howard asked impatiently. "Evidence that human DNA was engineered," Carter said, his voice filled with awe. "The same markers appear in our genetic code that appear in the Valyrians and our other allies, but ours have been enhanced. Specifically, the sequences that control adaptability, aggression, and creativity." "Are you saying we were created as weapons?" Jack asked incredulously. "Not created, Olivia realized, pieces falling into place. Guided. Our evolution was subtly directed over millions of years. We're the result of a project started by some ancient civilization that recognized the devourer would return eventually. On screen, Miller's ship rocked with another hit. Whatever we are, she said, we need to use it now. The enemy has regrouped. They're coming again, and this time they're targeting Earth directly. The command center erupted in activity as the battle for humanity's survival entered its final phase. Earth was falling. Despite humanity's best efforts, the Devourer's forces had pushed past the outer defenses and now surrounded the planet like a shroud. The remaining Allied ships fought valiantly, but were vastly outnumbered. On the surface, billions huddled in shelters as strange energies rippled through the atmosphere. In the underground command center beneath Geneva, Jack, Olivia, and the remaining leaders of Earth gathered for what might be their final meeting. The evacuation ships have launched, General Howard reported, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. 23 vessels carrying 10,000 people each. It's all we could manage in the time we had. 230,000 out of 8 billion, Olivia whispered. It's not enough. Professor Eric Grant, head of Project Omega, stepped forward. The elderly physicist looked as though he had aged decades in the past few months. We've completed the quantum entanglement array. It's ready to deploy. A heavy silence fell over the room. The array was humanity's last resort, a desperate plan that had seemed unthinkable just weeks earlier. Show us again how it works, Jack requested. Grant nodded and activated a holographic display. The devourer exists partially in quantum space, which is how it can consume energy so efficiently. This array will create a quantum entanglement field around Earth. When activated, it will briefly connect our planet to every point in the galaxy where the devourer's consciousness extends. And the result? Asked Howard. A feedback loop of massive proportions. The devourer will experience the equivalent of a seizure across its entire network. It won't destroy it completely, but the damage will be severe enough to force it into hibernation again. Olivia looked up from her calculations. The energy required will consume Earth entirely, Grant confirmed. The planet will be sacrificed to save countless others. No one spoke for a long moment. Their home world for the entire history of their species, traded for the survival of humanity on distant worlds and the protection of countless other civilizations. Begin the final broadcast, Howard ordered softly. Across the planet, transmission stations activated simultaneously. Using technology adapted from the Valyrian outpost, Earth began broadcasting the most powerful message ever sent into space, a complete record of human knowledge, culture, and experience, along with detailed plans for fighting the devourer. The message traveled faster than light, spreading to every corner of the galaxy. This is humanity's final warning to the galaxy, began the transmission. We face an ancient enemy that consumes worlds. We stand as the shield between it and countless innocent lives. Remember us. Learn from us. Prepare for its return. In orbit, Commander Miller received the signal to retreat aboard her battered flagship. All remaining vessels, disengage and proceed to rendezvous with evacuation ships, she ordered, her voice steady despite the tears on her face. As the Allied fleet pulled back, the Devourer's ships closed in, their hunger for Earth's energy growing more intense. They didn't notice the subtle energy buildup from the quantum array until it was too late. In the command center, Jack reached for Olivia's hand. "Do you think we made a difference?" he asked quietly. She nodded, squeezing his fingers. "The Valyrians died alone. We united the galaxy. Our seed ships will reach our allies' worlds. Humanity will survive. And return someday," Jack added. Professor Grant approached the activation console, array at full charge, entanglement field stable. He looked around the room. "It has been the highest honor to work with you all." General Howard straightened his uniform one last time. "For Earth, for humanity, for all sentient life in the galaxy." Grant pressed the activation key. The quantum array fired, encasing Earth in a shimmering field that connected to every fragment of the Devourer across the galaxy. The feedback was immediate and devastating. The Devourer's ships convulsed in space, their biological systems overloading as the consciousness controlling them experienced simultaneous trauma in countless locations. Earth began to glow from within as the tremendous energies of the array consumed the planet. In its final moments, humanity's homeworld shone like a beacon, visible across light years of space. Aboard the evacuation ships, the survivors watched in silence as their world disappeared in a flash of impossible light. They carried with them seeds, DNA samples, cultural treasures, and most importantly, the knowledge needed to fight when the Devourer eventually returned. The message continued to spread across the galaxy, reaching civilizations that had never heard of humans before. We were the shield. We have fallen, but we are not defeated. We will return. And next time, we will be ready. 100 years after Earth's sacrifice, humanity had spread across the stars. The survivors of the original evacuation ships had been welcomed by their alien allies, establishing colonies on 12 different worlds. Though they numbered only in the millions, a fraction of Earth's former population, humans had thrived in their new homes, bringing their unique adaptability to each environment they settled. On the Tellurian homeworld of Vesh, a grand ceremony was underway. Representatives from 27 species gathered in the massive meeting hall of remembrance, built specifically to commemorate Earth's final stand. At its center stood a perfect holographic recreation of humanity's lost homeworld, slowly rotating above a platform of polished stone. Peter Foster, great-grandson of Lieutenant Jack Foster, stood at the speaker's podium. Though only 32 years old, he had been chosen to lead the Human Continuity Project, dedicated to preserving Earth's legacy and preparing for humanity's future. A century ago today, our ancestors made the ultimate sacrifice. Peter began, his voice carrying across the silent hall. Earth fell so that countless worlds might survive. The Devourer retreated, wounded more severely than at any time in its long existence. But as our forebears warned us, it will return. Murmurs spread through the assembled delegates. The memory of the Devourer still brought fear, even to species who had never directly encountered it. Today, we mark not just a day of remembrance, but a milestone of progress. Peter continued. The Galactic Defense Network is now complete. 47 star systems connected by quantum communications, with early warning systems extending to the edge of the galaxy. Ambassador Nina Wright, descendant of Dr. Olivia Wright, approached the podium next. She carried a small crystal cube that glowed with inner light. Within this data crystal lies the complete genetic record of every Earth species we managed to preserve, she explained. Today, we announce the Genesis Project. On a planet we've named New Earth, we will begin the process of restoring what was lost. The animals, the plants, the ecosystems of our homeworld. The hall erupted in supportive sounds from the various species present, the clicking mandibles of the Keshet, the harmonic humming of the Norva, and the traditional applause of the human delegates. From the back of the hall approached a figure that caused all noise to cease, Ambassador Kelth of the Norva, now ancient even by their standards, moved slowly toward the podium. As the only surviving member of the original alliance to have fought alongside humans at the Battle of Neptune, his words carried special weight. When the Devourer first came, Kelth said, his translator conveying his vibrating speech patterns, we believed the end had arrived for all sentient life. The Valyrians had fallen. Others before them had fallen. But humans, he paused, his three eyes blinking in sequence. Humans were different. In all my years studying the cosmos, I have never seen a species so fiercely determined to protect not just themselves, but others. Kelth raised a limb toward the hologram of Earth. The universe is not kind. It does not care if we live or die. But humans cared. They made the universe itself cry out against extinction. Their warning continues to spread, reaching new civilizations every day, preparing them for what will come. After the ceremony, Peter and Nena walked together through the gardens outside the hall. Above them, the unfamiliar constellations of Vesh's night sky glittered. "Do you think we'll ever be ready?" Nina asked quietly. "The scientists say the devourer might sleep for 1,000 years or more, but eventually." Peter looked up at the stars. "That's why we keep working. Not just to survive, but to thrive. To be stronger when it returns." "Jack and Olivia would be proud," Nina said, smiling at the mention of their famous ancestors. "They would be, but not just of us," Peter replied. "They'd be proud of this." He gestured to the gathering behind them, where humans mingled freely with beings of incredibly diverse forms and biologies. Earth died, but it united the galaxy in a way nothing else could have. In deep space, the evacuation ships had been preserved as memorials, still broadcasting Earth's final message to the farthest reaches of the cosmos. And somewhere, in the darkness between galaxies, the wounded devourer slumbered, its consciousness slowly healing, unaware that its next awakening would find not isolated victims, but a galaxy united and prepared. Humanity had not just survived. It had ensured that Earth's sacrifice would never be forgotten, and that when the ancient enemy returned, the universe would be ready to cry out once more.